Alright, hi you guys, and welcome back to another segment of I'm Available to Chat. So I started this segment yesterday in response to so many inquiries I received via my inbox on Facebook, direct email, where people are just saying they want to chat with me, right? So I feel like obviously there's a right and wrong way to do things. And I feel like this is a more effective way to engage with you guys, to just create a separate segment strictly devoted to people, men and women, who would like to engage with me and to ask me questions about anything, right? Because I know many of my topics are very specific, geared towards targeted topics that I came up with, that you guys came up with. So here is your opportunity. So I actually came back quicker than what I thought I would, right? Because yesterday was the first day that I did this, yesterday evening. And I know I said that I'll probably do it like once a week, but what happened yesterday in our very first segment of this series, or a series of this segment, is that, Facebook, I'm blaming Facebook, right? Somehow Facebook didn't show me the comments that were being left as they were being left during the live. So I missed a shit ton of comments that you guys left. And you guys saw watching the video, I'm like, okay, no one wants to talk. It's pretty silent here. You guys are always in my inbox saying, when am I available to chat? Can I chat? And then here I am, and then crickets, right? So you guys saw that exchange that we had yesterday, and it's just like, I didn't see anyone commenting. But it's not that no one was commenting, it's just that I couldn't see the comments for some odd reason until like, I think an hour, almost halfway, over halfway into the fucking live video recording, when I just started to see comments popping up, and I'm just like, okay, either there's a glitch or Facebook is not showing me who's commenting, or no one is commenting. You guys just are just sitting back silently observing. So I figured it out. I figured that's what it was, because that has happened to me before, where I would be making a video like this and there's no comments, and it clearly shows that people are watching. So that kind of threw me for a loop. If that ever happens, where you know that you are commenting, you're leaving comments, and you're like, why aren't you addressing my comments? Listen, the best that I can say is just hold your horses, be patient, don't take it personal, because I usually, almost always address all comments, even if they're inappropriate, right? I'll address it, and I'll most likely say, if it's inappropriate, I'll say it's inappropriate. I'll give you a warning, right? And if it persists, then I'll just block you during the live. So that's how that works. So welcome back. I will be reading those comments that I wasn't able to see yesterday. Here on this live, I'll be addressing those comments here. And also, you guys can feel free to chime in. As the title says, ask me anything. This is your time. I don't know how often I'll be doing this, though. Maybe every weekend. We'll see. Maybe. I knew that someone would ask me a question related to cuckolding. Hold off. If you're patient, I'll get to that question. But I do want to start with the comments that were left yesterday from yesterday's video that I did not see. I feel that it's very unfair that people were leaving comments, and it seemed like I was ignoring their comments, but I really wasn't. I just couldn't see them. So let's jump right into that. Now, first I'll read 3 comments that were left by 3 different people from the YouTube premiere that I did after I went live on Facebook, right? So this is during the YouTube premiere, and I wanted to really address this. Like, sometimes it's difficult for me to address people's comments when they leave them on my YouTube live premiere videos, because I sometimes don't like, sometimes the response is pretty lengthy, and I want to really break it down and give it its, just due. So with that, I would rather come back and address it in another video as opposed to like typing out my response. So someone said, because I was talking about how people are hesitant to comment sometimes, like are they afraid? What's happening, right? So this one person says, I'm thinking that the reason people message you weird questions, because I said that people, like, I feel like it's weird that you guys will inbox me and say, ask me, am I available to chat? Or like, where am I located? Just silly questions, very surface level, right? As opposed to just jumping right in and talking about whatever it is that's on your mind. Because it's the reason why you want to chat. It's the reason why you want to engage. Just jump right in, right? Of course, be polite about it and introduce yourself. So I spoke to how I feel like people are like asking weird questions, and this person is like giving his take on that, and saying that is that they don't want to say the wrong things and get on your bad side, which that could be true, right? I don't think it's easy to get on my bad side necessarily, like if you use discretion, right, and you're calculated in your responses and in your comments, right? I think some people, obviously, like with being behind a screen on social media, they feel at liberty just to say whatever. However, knowing damn well they wouldn't say these things in person. They would never say these things in person to a person, but they just feel like the freedom to just say whatever behind the screen, because the screen is protecting them, right? And their fake identity or, fake name, fake profile is protecting them. And I think that's really inappropriate. And so I don't really have much tolerance for ignorant shit like that, and most likely a person like that will get blocked, right? But you have the opportunity to redeem yourself, right? Like, I feel like we all make mistakes, right? So if you feel that I blocked you, somehow you're not receiving my notifications. This one person said, like, I've been missing out on your live videos for like 2 months straight. I don't get notifications, and I had to check to see if this person was blocked. He wasn't blocked, so I don't know what's going on, why he's not receiving them. But I suggest for you guys who would like to be notified when I go live here on Facebook, first of all, come over to Facebook. A lot of y'all on YouTube seeing this video, and it's just like, oh, you're like, I'm not on Facebook. Well, that's not my problem, okay? If you want to see content, you go wherever that content is. Point blank, period. I'm not going to sit up here and create a long spiel about that. And then turn on your post notifications. He says, ever think you intimidate some men? I think so, of course. I've said that before, that I know I intimidate many men. And I think it has a lot to do with my level of intellect compared to theirs, and also their level of self-esteem, right? Or lack thereof compared to mine. It comes out, it's like, I spoke about this in my video on dating pet peeves, turnoffs, and deal breakers. And I shared with you guys my experiences dating in Los Angeles and here in New York City. And that's something that I've come across, obviously, men who are very insecure within themselves, have very low self-esteem. And when you are a person with very low self-esteem and you are interacting with a person who's very secure and confident within themselves, like, I feel like it makes your insecurities more blatant, right? They become more blatant, more obscure, more salient, right? So that's just how the cookie crumbles. And I'm not a person really to massage your insecurities, make you feel better, or try to placate or stroke your ego. Like, that's the last thing I would do with a person who feels insecure, especially a man. I'm sorry, don't really have tolerance for that shit. So yeah, I do think I intimidate some men, and grow some balls. Anyway, That comment was made by Dwayne Boyd. Appreciate that comment. So Michael Gonzalez asked me, spiritually, what is your higher power? I said to him, that's a really good question, right? Okay, so I don't subscribe to any organized traditional religion. I was born and raised Baptist and primitive Baptist. I grew up in a church where, like, we participated in actual feet washing. This was an actual ritual that we did, I think, every first Sunday. Very old school. I went to church like religiously. This was like part of my upbringing, growing up in a 2-parent household because my mom and dad were both Baptists. Then I grew older, became educated, informed, enlightened, and I stepped away. I stepped away from the church, religion, and not necessarily abandoning like the principles that are taught within religion, because I do think there are many lessons that are taught, let's say in the Bible and, you know, in the context of Christianity, that are very helpful. So I still hold on to certain things, you know, and I think certain things are just naturally like ingrained and embedded in people, in humanity, and I feel like that is my guide, that is my spirit guide. Or, you know, when it comes to a higher power, that's a very philosophical question, because I truly believe that we all possess the Spirit of God. God, in how we interpret or perceive, you know, God to be this higher power, this supernatural being, this all-seeing person, this magnificent entity. Like, I think we're all God in that sense, and we reach that level of God power, right? It becomes manifest as we ascend up our spiritual ladder, right? And we become more in tune with ourselves, and we're more grounded, and we're mature spiritually. Like, that's how we ascend, I think, up that spiritual ladder. It's like a spiritual ranking. And so the more conscious we are of the truth, the closer we become to that higher being, right? Which when you really come to think of it, and you know, the deeper you go in your spirituality, you realize that higher being is yourself, and it's also seen in other living things, including people, animals, plants, trees, you know, just the universe, things that human beings have made, right? Which are expressions of that God power. When you look at, you know, society and buildings and, you know, civilization, like, that's all an expression of God, you know. I was about to say himself. See, that's part of that indoctrination, right, of Christianity. So it's not that, like, just because I've stepped away, right, consciously from Christianity, it's not that. It's not subconsciously, like, embedded in me. And it comes out, I think, in all of us, you know, even the most astute, conscious beings is kind of going to always be there. Like, you're raised within a certain organized religion. So, yeah, my spirit guide is me, you know, and it's within me. That's how I see it. Brain Smart says, both dominance and submission can be addictive. Anything can be addictive, but I don't think I ever, like, really conceptualized dominance and submission in terms of it being addictive. Like, addictive kind of has a negative connotation, right? And like in a bad way. I don't really see it that way. Like the spectrum of dominance and submission, because it isn't a spectrum, right? I don't think anyone is like 100% dominant or 100% submissive. Even when you think of masters versus slaves, like, they still fall on a spectrum. I think that we have a proclivity towards, you know, one or the other, right? More towards like dominance or submission. And for me, I would say that I know I have both, right? I know that I have dominant characteristics within me, and I also have submissive characteristics within me. They come out at different times. That's the thing, like when it's necessary, right? But when it comes to his second part of his question, which says, which fulfills me more, it really is submission. I gain more satisfaction when I'm in a position where I can fully submit to a man. I am heterosexual. So, I don't know if you guys are, like, most of you guys watching this, I think, oftentimes I come across a lot of beta men. I attract beta men, especially to my YouTube channel. And you guys identify with the submissive role, but it just feels so freeing. I talk about this in my BDSM, submission videos, where it just feels like it feels freeing. It feels liberating. It's just, like the weight of the world is just lifted off your shoulders. You can relax. You can be at ease. Yeah. When I come across a man where, he's truly dominant, alpha, and there's a space created where I, feel comfortable and safe to submit. Alright, so now we're going to dive into the comments that were left on my Facebook Live video yesterday that I did not see. It was like, what the hell? These are so many comments that I didn't see, yo. I don't know if it's happening here in this video. I doubt it, though. Let's hope not. Let's cross our fingers that people aren't leaving comments that I can't see. I think it's working better. Someone had left a comment. I'm going to come back to a comment, though. So, this person that comes on my live videos very frequently, he just drops, like, I think people just want to be seen, right? They want to be acknowledged. He says the same thing, right? Hi, beautiful. Hi, sexy. And I think he's from Spain. He's a black man, by the way. So, Adamoye. Alright, that was left from Zalazar Tyrone, right? That hello, sexy. So, another comment was left by Adamoye. I want to say he is from Africa, based on his name. I'm not sure which part, but I would guess Nigeria. He says, hi, I want to come to the U.S. Can you be of help? Now, I'm going to have to be honest with you. My initial reaction to that, granted, I didn't see it during the live, but I'm reading it now. I see it now. I'm like, I feel kind of offended. Yeah, just like, because reason being is because, I've come across many of African men here in the U.S., not just in New York City, though, but also in L.A., like on dating sites who use dating apps just to target women who are very naive. What's happening? This whole trend of foreign men, especially African men, like getting on dating apps and pretending, right? They have this facade as if they want to fall in love, they want to meet someone for romantic, like, intimate, like, relationship purposes, but underneath that, really, the driving force is that they're just looking for, citizenship. They're trying to gain access, and he just popped in, by the way. Adamoye, I'm reading your comment. So, as I said at the beginning of this video, is that somehow with Facebook, I didn't see comments that were left, right? Many comments that you guys left during my video I made yesterday, I could not see. So I'm reading those comments now, and I'm actually on your comments, interested in that you popped in as I'm reading your comment. But I'm going to be honest with you, right? So there are many African men that show up on dating apps, right? And they wear this facade like that's what their intent is, right? And they come across a woman like me who's, seriously seeking someone or open to meeting someone, who has a similar interest and intent as myself in terms of wanting to nurture and build a long-term serious relationship leading, to, let's say, marriage and a family and kids. These men, on the other hand, that's not what they're seeking, right? They're seeking to have their own personal needs met, being access to America and the resources here in America, right? And I don't fault them for that, right? Wanting to, move to America and create a better quality of life for themselves, but don't use me. And it makes me think about this other comment that was left during the live YouTube premiere, right? From someone who was like, men use women kind of to the point of men use women use men, people just use each other as long as it's like mutually beneficial and, we're both gaining something out of the business arrangement. And I'm like, well, for me, because I think I was talking about how relationships really have lost their value. People in relationships have lost like the value and appreciation just, in respect for people, right? And there is all about me and what I can get, and they're not, when you think of people coming together, it's not for love, right? And I made the statement that people use people and love things when they should love people and use things. And then that's when the other person left a comment saying, oh, well, people use people and he's okay with that. And I'm just like, he's saying he's okay with that as long as it's mutually beneficial. And I'm like, okay, on one hand, yeah, that holds weight, especially when you think about like corporate, right? We're all there for our own needs, for the most part, yeah, people, are there for, their own interests to that specific industry or field, but in the day, like, you wouldn't be there just for free, because we all have bills, and our, own personal motives for why we're there. So I get it from that perspective. I'm talking about relationships, right? I'm talking about intimate relationships. It's just like, yeah, I think we've lost that flavor. And so I'm giving you my reaction, like initial reaction to like this comment left by Adamoye asking me, will I help him come to the U.S.? He's like, hi, I want to come to the U.S. Can you be of help, right? So that's my initial reaction. It's just like, you're not going to use me. And I don't like that. It's kind of like brought back, this idea of a lot of African men, using especially Black American women for that purpose. And it's like, okay, now that you got your shit, right? You got the credentials that you're seeking from that relationship, right? Leading to marriage, obviously, because that's how you get it. It's just like, okay, then you discard a person. And I don't like that idea. I just don't like that. You're not going to use me. So, but in thinking about this critically, right? And me being a Pan-African, me having love for all Africans across the diaspora, on the continent and abroad, I must say that I have thought about, because there's many Africans, who are suffering, and we know that different countries in Africa, many countries, don't have the opportunities that we have over here in America, which leads to poverty and suffering and crime, and it's hard for them to get out of that condition, that situation, and a lot of Africans attribute it to like poor leadership. So I get it, right? And it's just like, okay, what can we do to help here in America? And I even thought about, wouldn't it be nice, like, create a program, right? And like, kind of create an access program for Africans to come to America and have resources set up for them and all that. But then another part of me is just like, why the hell y'all want to come to America? I mean, I get the obvious reasons, right? Like money, because the U.S. dollar goes far, and perceived opportunities that you think are here compared to there. I get that. But you live on the greatest continent in the world, Africa. Why leave there? It's just, I feel like if you are no use there, what use are you going to be here in America? I have much respect for Africans who hold it down. And they're born in Africa, they live there, they die there. It's not saying you want to see and explore other parts of the world, but I just have much respect for those Africans who truly hold it down there, and they make it work. And they make it work so that displaced Africans, such as ourselves, like we're descendants of enslaved Africans who were brought to America against their will, they make it so that we can go back, we can return, we can reconnect, and hopefully they're holding it down to the extent where they're retaining the culture, right? The cultural value of African heritage and history. That's really important, because we don't want to go travel miles all the way back to the motherland just to see and experience the same shit that we have over here in America, like the whitewashing, the implicit racism, right? Racial biases that we experience here in America. We don't want to go over there and it's just like, okay, y'all have been whitewashed, you have been conditioned in the same way that many Black Americans here have, right? That would defeat the whole purpose. We return to Africa so that we can reconnect with our roots, get in tune with the culture, our identity, solidify and reawaken, that African spirit within us. That's important. And it has been whitewashed, right? And I talked about blackwashing white culture in another video. And I kind of broke down, first of all, what is whitewashing? It's when you lose aspects of your culture. Not sometimes you lose it, but you also give it up too, like willingly, subconsciously and conscious. You kind of just forfeit it, right? Just to assimilate to the dominant culture, numerically dominant culture being, the Caucasian, European, white culture. My advice, he asks, can I be of help? My advice to Adamoye is to really ask yourself, why are you coming here? Really explore it, because a lot of Africans come to America and they become slaves. You just become Americanized. You become like an American slave. It looks good on the outside until you're here and you're like, well, damn, I'm fucking working more and harder and longer than I've ever worked, right? And then you realize that your physical health, your mental health is being compromised as a result of chasing the American dollar. And you can't even fucking, and when I say appreciate the fruits of your labor, I mean, you can't really enjoy it. You can't, It says bad leadership and corruption is what is driving people out of Africa. You can't get anything done without knowing people in the corridor of power, unlike what is obtainable. Like, I think that's a problem if you have this idea that like resources and money is just falling out of the sky here in America. You're in for a rude awakening. You need to have a realistic perspective of America before you come over here. Otherwise, you're going to be sadly disappointed. I'm telling you, you're going to be, because I'm friends with many Africans from different countries in Africa, right? Who've come over here. Now, not all, I wouldn't say like not all like struggle bad when it comes to, I've met many though that have, right? We're talking about from Gambia, from Ivory Coast, from Nigeria. Well, Nigerians tend to, I don't know, I think it's like you say about who you know too, right? But you have to come over here. I mean, I think some come over here like on a travel visa. I would suggest coming over here like on a specific visa that is going to like kind of get you a foot in the door in terms of not just on a travel visa, but let's say work, right? Or school. Most, I think, come over here like on a school visa. Then from there you transition into like, if you can find work, then work, right? So it's possible to come over here and thrive. You have many fucking Africans have done that, but then there are a significant portion that they'll tell you before you get to that whole American dream where you can actually purchase a home and live comfortably, like they have sleepless nights. They busting their ass working so many hours, and then many of them are on undocumented status, right? They don't have legal status, and just that whole stress surrounding not having their paperwork and the what if, right? I think during the pandemic that stress was eased a bit because that wasn't a priority here in America. Obviously, it was COVID, so they weren't like arresting anyone, like they weren't doing any like the deporting, I think, because that wasn't really a focus at that time. But I don't know, we're kind of up in full swing now, so things are changing. No enabling environment for small businesses to thrive. Yeah. But that's the thing, like, why not create those opportunities? Is I feel like you can collaborate with perhaps, African Americans to create, that we need to collaborate, right? I don't think people need to necessarily leave Africa, because imagine if everyone had that same attitude and just left Africa, then it would be free for all for other races like the Chinese to come in, right? Not as if they haven't already done it. So somebody got to be holding Africa down, and I think that it's important that we collaborate. But that's something that I think is a discussion that should be had like offline. So another comment left by Fushan Coleman. She asks, at what age do you think you will have children or get married? Good question. I am 38 years old. I have never been married. I do not have any children. I do want children, though. Do I want to be married? Now, it's funny because marriage in the U.S. is such a complicated construct, which we've kind of talked about when you asked me, like, why is the divorce rate so high over here in the States? It's because people really don't value marriage. So, being a woman, like, of my stature, right, and having a desire to create a family, because I come from a two-parent household. I know what family looks like and how it should function. Many people don't, and even if they do, they really don't desire that, right? So that's the catch-22. It's just like I'm in a context, an environment where, not people aren't rushing necessarily to get married, but there are men who desire stability, right? But they still fear, I guess, the other side of that in, taking in the beliefs of other men, right? So the dominant culture here, as it pertains to marriage, is just like people aren't really valuing marriage. They value sex and promiscuity, and men value having multiple women and sex partners, or I guess wives, so to speak, even though polygamy here is illegal. Like, you see a trend where a lot of black men are taking on like multiple wives, and women are being convinced, like, okay, to kind of create this polygamous type of family, they're joining in on that concept. But a lot of men are doing it for the wrong reasons. I don't like that, right? And it's just really to feed their ego. It's toxic. It's a toxic kind of dynamic that I would want to be a part of. But I have said that, yeah, I will be open to a polygamous relationship because I understand the necessity for it, right? And building family and having sister wives that we could, just look out for each other. So I will be open to that. But for me, I'm such a very unique individual that because, like, it's like when you ascend, when you become like aware of who you are and you vibrate on a certain frequency, it's very difficult to center yourself around people who just aren't there. It's just like, yeah, so that's my issue. Many people are just low vibrational, right? They watch too much TV, hours and hours of television. They're always like, social media, just like really like easily influenced. And I need to have people around me, especially when it comes to a partnership, who is conscious, like, you know what I'm saying, who's a spiritual being, who is aware of the socio-political, economical issues surrounding us, right? Who's conscious of that. They need to be, you know, especially as it relates to how we interact with each other, and also when children come into the picture. Because I don't believe, like, in divorce. Many people quickly, they want out because that's an option. If it wasn't an option, people wouldn't be getting divorced. But it's so easy. Well, I won't say easy, right? Because, you know, it depends on, like, when you talk about have assets involved, like shared assets, you know, bank accounts and property and children. Divorce can be a very long, drawn-out process. But when I say easy, it's just like all you need is a lawyer and fucking money. You know, it's like, it's not like, okay, they put a bunch of loops in front of you to get a divorce. Like, if you want to file for a divorce, boom, you can file for a divorce. Separation is very easy here, and people usually resort to that very quickly, I think. Not even as a last resort. They, you know, they rely upon separation. Like, people just are very, they look at other human beings as, like, easily discarded. You know, they discard people like just nothing. They throw away people. So I'm very aware of that, and I'm cautious when it comes to me spending time with a potential partner, a mate, right? I'm very cautious. Like, I'm very selective. I've been told that, oh, you're too picky. No, I'm not picky. I'm just very protective of my space, of my mental health, my well-being, what I've built thus far. You know, because relationships, when they're toxic, and they can be very damaging. They can interrupt, disrupt your whole flow. You could be on a pathway to working towards something, and if you're not careful, you're getting with someone who's very careless, right, and nonchalant, and just, you know, like to just throw people and relationships away. That shit can really fuck you up. Now, granted, I've been in relationships before, long term, so it's not like I've been single. I would say over half of my adult life, I've been in a serious long-term relationship with a man where we've actually lived together. I talked about this before. And, you know, for the most part, I wouldn't say it disrupted, you know, my path, but it hasn't impacted me. I can't say I've gone, you know, in those relationships and walked away without being impacted. Of course, it definitely has. And so I'm very cautious. You have to be. When it comes to that, because, you know, I'm a person, like, I fall hard, and I sometimes can get easily attached, you know, to a person, because I'm giving. Like, I'm giving. I feel like if I'm in it, I'm in it, right? Like, we in it, like, kind of on some gang shit, you know, ride or die type of person, right? Not everyone is like that, of course, and so when you're that kind of person, you got to be very guarded and careful, because people will take advantage of that. And so I'm definitely not here for someone to use it and abuse and toss me around like a rag doll. And that's kind of like the culture of people here, I would say. Not everyone is like that, though. I'm aware, obviously. Not everyone is like that, but a good number of men have that mentality. I just made a post on Facebook where dudes be like, hey, sexy, and it really just translates to, I want to fuck you, you know? I get it. Men are driven by their own biological impulses and have these sexual urges, but I'm not here to be your fucking basket for your sexual expulsion of your goddamn seeds. No. Go find someone else. So, to answer her question, I don't know what age that I'm going to have children. I think, in terms of, let's say, my spiritual radar, right? My spiritual kind of prophetic radar, and being able to sense and see into the future. I kind of sense that it will happen. I feel like it will happen, right? I think it's just divine alignment, right? Because I have this thing where like I said, I've dated men long term, right? And it happens where I'll go periods without dating someone, and then, but when it happens, it's just like the shit. Like, it's long term, it's deep love, it's intense, and then I'm the one that pulls out. I'm usually the one that like wants to kind of break away from it after I've tried, because I'm not like a person that gives up, right? I'll try to like restore and make things like, let's improve, right? Let's fix whatever is broken here in this relationship. If it's not working, it's not working. So I'll make attempts to do that. But if I see like, nah, if they're not meeting me, then I'm not going to invest, because the relationships are an investment of your time, your energy, your health, right? So I'll pull away, but I do want children. Now this is the thing, right? Because we know biology is biology. You can't compete with biology, right? So we know this thing called menopause that women experience, where at a certain age, and that can be fucking any age when you think about it, where women reach the age where they're not able to procreate any longer, right? Now I think that, honestly, I'm nowhere near that age. I do still get my menstrual cycle every month, and I feel like relatively healthy, like physically fit, where I think you have some women that say, well, they feel like they wouldn't be able to carry a child, like they don't feel their body could handle that, right? I feel like, yeah, my body could handle it, and I would love to experience what that is like, to do it like naturally with the man that I'm in love with, right? And that we have a future together, where we can, do this parenting thing together, right? And not just parenting, but existing together, loving each other as a couple till death do us part. That's obviously my preference, but things don't happen that way, so sometimes things happen in an unconventional way, and I have been looking into alternatives to that, such as like the IVF process, and what is it called? I think it's called the IUI procedure for women. I've been looking into that. Intrauterine insemination, where they have it where you can do it yourself. You just purchase, vial of sperm, and they have a device, insert, and I can fucking impregnate myself. I'm thinking about that, but do I want to rely upon that initially as like my first alternative? Hell fucking no. My first choice, right? My first course of action? No, I would not. That's like a last resort. Like, okay, if I feel like at wit's end, and I'm just like, all right, I just want kids, I just want to see what it's like to be a mother. The man isn't really important necessarily with a relationship, Granted, he is, right? I'm not saying not, but when you look at all these other factors, right? Men not valuing women or love and relationships, and not really to stick it out and be in it for the long run. They don't know how to do that because of the many traumas, black men and women have endured and continue to endure, right? Intergenerational traumas within the family, and even in society, influences, I get it. And sometimes people feel like it's just better just to walk the road by themselves. Just to be single, and to step away from a relationship when it becomes challenging, right? Even if they've impregnated a woman. And so that has always been my biggest fear. I don't want to be a baby mama. I don't want to have to experience, abandonment, from a man who is very immature in his thinking and his ability to be able to resolve conflict and problem solve, because problems are inevitable, right? You're going to experience problems in a relationship, any relationship. Many men just don't know how to effectively problem solve. And so that's a problem in and of itself. That's problematic. Their way of solving problems is escaping, walking away, and oftentimes never returning. And I'm you serious? Like, you have fucking children here. They give up and they feel like, oh, they have options, you know. They, in their mind, it's a high ratio of available women to men, and so, yeah, they're like, I just go on to the next one, right, and get my rocks off, and, you know, spend some time having fun with her. This is a whole video in and of itself, right, answering this question that Fushan posed as to what age do I think I would have children or get married. That's a whole video topic in and of itself, yo. I did make a video on dating pet peeves, turnoffs, and deal breakers, where I talked about like certain things that I feel like are deterrents, you know, for me being able to fall in love and solidify that relationship with a man, right? It's just like things that pop up that they do. I talk about like men who are, you know, addicted to like drinking. They drink excessively. Because alcohol is a thing, right? You know, the happy hour, and these people who just drink, you know. I have a glass of wine here and there, but am I a drinker? No. Do I have a problem with alcohol? Fuck no, right? You have to be in control. And a lot of people drink to cope with stress. I get it. You know, it's no judgment zone here, but that's just not what I'm attracted to. And unfortunately, that kind of X's out a lot of men, right? You know, I don't even really like men who smoke, especially cigarettes, but even marijuana. And it's just certain things, you know, yeah, like you have to be, you know, spiritually awake and, you know, sound mind, balanced. Not perfect. No one is perfect. But at least strive to improve. And you got to be a communicator. You got to be a really good, effective communicator, because that's how we resolve issues. And of course, my top kind of requirement is that, like, what draws me to a man, I can sense within a man if he has dominant alpha male energy. And a lot of men don't really possess that. They don't know how to lead. So it kind of makes sense why I'm single. A lot of men just they are not there. They're not there. They claim that, oh, like they want to be tough and dominant, but what does that look like in a relationship with a woman, right? Living in the context of society in which we live in, right? Where you got this whole narrative of men saying they think women should contribute 50-50 to bills. They have this expectation. So it's one thing for a woman to contribute, right? Who doesn't have a job, right? Who doesn't have sustainable income? Most of us do, right? So that's not what we're talking about here as to, oh, if a woman is a gold digger or she fucking a foot dragger or living off of welfare. You're not talking to an individual like that, right? Clearly. Most women have taken care of men historically, especially black women, right? What we're talking about is a man being able to take care of himself and a family, that which he creates, and knowing his role in that family as a provider, which many men don't. That's important to me when it comes to selecting not just a partner, but we're talking about a mate and procreating, creating a family, right? And bringing children into this. That's important, because I do think that a woman's role, I'm just very old school and traditional. I think that a woman's role, especially when a child is born, is to be there with the child, to nurture, to breastfeed, to raise, to teach. You know, I love to teach, you know, and I need to know that things are taken care of. Not to say I would not be able to contribute financially, but it's just more comforting and reassuring to know that the bills are paid. Not have to fucking worry about having to go to work to pay. So that's the difference. Many men don't get that slight nuance, right, of a man expecting a woman to pay versus a woman being able to contribute, right? Let's say most women, if not all women, can contribute financially, but it's the expectation that is placed upon a woman, which kind of creates a level of stress, right, to contribute. On top of that, you know, be the homemaker, carry the children, give birth, nurture the children, feed, you know, clean the house, cook, all these responsibilities, not to complain about it, right? Because you have men that say, well, that's what a woman's supposed to do. But is a woman supposed to be out there hunting, getting the goddamn bread, right? Not really. Not if she has all these other roles. That's not an equal split. And they want to say, oh, 50-50, but is that really 50-50 when you think about all the roles that a woman has in a relationship, in a marriage, in a household? That's not, you can't compare, yo. Motherhood is a role, is a job in and of itself, right? And I know one say, oh, fatherhood is also a role. Yeah, but the role that a man plays, like, especially in the early stages, you know, we're talking about when the child is in utero, still in the womb, right? And then after the child is born, much of that work comes from the mother. Let's just be honest, okay? Yes, the man is there to support, and that's very important. So, yeah, that to me is kind of one of the biggest factors. Like, I need an alpha man. I need a man who knows his role, who's able to be there, and, you know, who appreciates and values my role in that dynamic, and who wants stability. You know, who is okay with stability. A lot of men, because how they were raised, you know, seeing different men coming in and out the house with their mother, that's a very unstable environment. That's what they have been accustomed to. So that's what they kind of recreate in their relationships, that instability and that dysfunctionality. I spot it very head on, right? Obviously, with the work I do as a psychologist, I know it. You know, many miles away, I can see that. And it turns me off. So, yeah, a lot of men get X'd out. Artificial insemination, should it be a first choice? There are still. I never said it was a first choice. I didn't say it was a first choice. If you were listening, I said that it is a choice. Which there is a thing. I didn't know. I just discovered this on YouTube. I'm like, wow, there's so much information out there. There's so much to learn that people just don't know, right? But there's a whole culture of women. And it's no surprise, right? We knew about, like, the group of black women that exist out there who are single, successful. I mean, you're talking about, like, they got some decent incomes, more than what men are making. So like I said, it's not a question of, oh, can a woman contribute financially? Yo, these women, a lot of black women are bringing in money, okay? The money is there, right? They purchase their own home. And yeah, you know, they're single waiting on the right man, right? So there's this whole culture of women is called single mother by choice. I happened to stumble across it from... I may make a whole separate video on this. I was thinking about that. But I'm kind of reluctant to talk about, you know, that idea I have in my mind in terms of, like, artificial insemination. But, yeah, I was looking at videos on the IVF, you know, just to, you know, learn about it. Because I do have an old colleague, a college friend and roommate who is lesbian and went through that process with her wife. I found it to be very fascinating, right? I mean, science is amazing, science and technology and medicine. So, you know, that kind of sparked my interest. But also being a woman, 38 years old myself, and still single, I had thought about IVF, but then I stumbled across another, like, because you're on YouTube, you kind of go in this rabbit hole, right? And I came across other video where there's a different way of getting, you know, pregnant, inseminated, not just through IVF. Because IVF, that shit is a very complicated process where they kind of, like, extract, you gotta take, like, all these pills, hormone pills, and to kind of generate an overproduction of eggs, right? And then at that point, they extract the eggs, freeze them, and of course, like, the conception process, I believe, happens, like, outside of the womb, right? And then once the egg is fertilized by the sperm, they insert the zygote into the uterus, right? And then the implantation happens. So that's IVF. It's a lot. It's actually more expensive. But then they also have the alternative, the other one, which is the intrauterine insemination, where you don't have to extract any eggs, right? You just, purchase a vial of sperm from a sperm bank. It's much cheaper, I think. It's not I think, but it is much cheaper than the other option of IVF. And you don't really have to have like medical oversight necessarily, where you have to have all these medical doctor's visits and things like that. You can just purchase it, do it yourself. It's like a do-it-yourself kind of thing at home. Insert, and boom. Get pregnant. So of course I thought about that. It's definitely not a first choice, but I don't think any woman who desires children, right, will risk that, waiting around, considering all the factors. I know you kind of been in and out of his life, so you missed certain parts that I've talked about where I kind of explained it, and all the factors like that lie outside of my control, right? I only have but so much control in the situation of creating, a dynamic, right? So it's not that cut and dry. I think every reasonable man should be ready to take care of his family before venturing into any relationship. Yeah, but you come from a different culture. Adamoye. You're not from the American culture. It's different over here. These, people do not even value life, okay, let alone family. So it's very different. And no one wants to gamble with that. And so I thought about that too, right? Because there are implications for doing artificial insemination, right? So I thought about okay, we're talking about taking some random person's biology, having studied psychology, that there are things attached to DNA, that may not even fucking manifest. Just because a person fills out a form, right? These men who donate their sperm to these sperm banks, they may deny a history of X, Y, and Z, medical issues, psychiatric issues in themselves and in their family. They can deny it. Doesn't mean that it's not there, right? And so, I don't want to fucking give birth to a demon child. And I'm wondering, damn, where did this shit come from? I know it ain't come from my side, but it could have easily very well come from my side, because, we all fucking got some shit in our family, got some skeletons there. So that's something that has come across my mind. Of course you're gonna be concerned about medically, is this other person's the sperm donor, is his genes safe? I don't want to create a child who has any genetic abnormalities, deformities, and none of that. Right? No autism, no developmental disabilities. You gotta deal with, it, right? But that's not what you're going for. At least when you do it the natural way with a person that you fall in love with, you know what I'm saying? You meet them, you get to meet their family, everything is kind of out on the table. You know what you're dealing with, so you can make an informed decision. But the drawback to doing it the natural way, we're talking about statistics here, right? We're talking about the likelihood of the relationship working out. It stands, we even talked about it yesterday, the divorce rate here in America is 1 out of every 2 marriages end in divorce, and relationships is shit even higher. Separation is through the roof, right? People just get in relationships, they break up like it's nothing, they're changing clothes, right? Underwear. And so that process of getting attached to someone, that's the drawback, right? You fall in love, you get attached, you're pregnant, and then that person, you get men have the nerve to want to be in a child's life, but kind of discard the mother. That's traumatic. I don't want to go through that, right? So we're talking about likelihood, not to say that's bound to happen, but what are the chances? That's what I'm thinking. What is the likelihood? I feel the likelihood it's very high, unfortunately. So I'm thinking about that foresight. Versus doing it, the artificial way. It's just that likelihood is zero, okay? Because I will be a single mother by choice. That is a whole culture. You can look it up on YouTube. You know, whole videos, vlogs are made by single mothers by choice, and that's pretty much what it is. We're women, we go out there and you know, pick your baby daddy from a sperm bank, and you deliberately become a single mother by choice. So it is what it is. I know it's not natural, but it's just like the next best thing, right? So having to reframe how I see, like, family. It is what it is. That was a very long response, but that's something that I've been thinking like deeply about, and I feel very passionate about. I do want children, but I also, being a very spiritual person, I'm like, you know what? Like I believe, I believe. Point blank, I believe, right? So, you know, all hope isn't lost, but just being realistic about it too. All right. Fushan says, congrats on my new position. Thank you. Thank you. I'm loving it. I feel very welcome at the hospital where I work at. And it was kind of like a culture shock, right? Because it's just like, dang, everybody's like, hey, how's your day? How are you? But it has to be that way considering the nature of our work. You know, it's working with, like, where I work, people who have severe mental illness. It's a hospital. She says, what happened with the older guy? What older guy? Most of the guys I date are older. Did you ever go? I don't know what she's talking about. I wish I knew what she was talking about. The older guy. So Adam Moye says, does psychology help in combating depression? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the whole thing about psychology. Psychology, basically, in a nutshell, is the study of human behavior. And also the study of empirically validated interventions to treat the symptomology of these conditions, right? These psychological conditions that people endure. And I thought about this yesterday when I was thinking about, like, writing a book to talk about my experiences and working in mental health, patients that I've worked with. Like, and this is not something new, right? It's just something that just kind of resurfaced in my mind, though. You know, we have society that we live in, and we know there are many woes, many flaws within our society. From a sociological perspective, it's just like these different layers within our society do impact individuals, right? People that live within that society. And it is, you know, a bi-directional process. So yes, it's like the environment has an influence on people, but meanwhile, we as people, we also influence our environment. So it's not to say people are complete victims and recipients of the problems that happen, you know, within our society, right? Like poverty, for example, police brutality and racism and discrimination, you know, these things, you know, are kind of constants within our society, and people, we have a way of being able to respond to these things that occur within our society. But it doesn't take away from how those things within our society impact us, right? And so you're talking about, like, psychology's role in combating, you know, dealing with depression. Depression, you know, from a neurobiological perspective, really is a kind of depletion in serotonin. It's a neurotransmitter, right, in the brain. And so typically, depending on how severe the depression is, it's typically treated with psychotropic medication, right, antidepressants. When it gets to that point, to kind of modulate that flow of serotonin so that a person can kind of get back to a sense of normalcy, being able to get out of bed. Because when a person is severely depressed, they don't even want to do basic activities of daily living, right? They don't want to get out of bed. They don't want to brush their teeth. It's like it takes so much energy, right, to even just get out of bed. The thought of even getting out of bed is just depressing for them, you know? So yeah, depression is very real. Very real. And so there's a psychiatric component to it in terms of intervention, and then there's psychology. There are therapeutic interventions that are helpful for treating depression. CBT, which is a very prominent theoretical and clinical approach to treating many different psychological disorders, but especially with depression too, which kind of like coincides with a comment that I made. This was a while ago, maybe like over a year ago, and people kind of took it the wrong way, but I said that depression is a lifestyle, and people were like, oh no, it's not. They kind of like attacked me, like, oh no, you don't understand, it's a medical issue. And I'm just like, me of all people, I'm a psychologist, but many people really don't know that, because I don't kind of broadcast it. I value and appreciate the hard work I put into becoming this role, but a lot of people don't know that. So of course I know, and then I have my own personal experience with depression. Depression is very common. It's one of the two most commonly diagnosed psychiatric disorders here in America. So I know fucking depression, okay? I know like the back of my hand. But what I mean by depression is a lifestyle, it means that, you do play a role in how you feel, right? We play a role, believe it or not, because our feelings kind of like are expressions of our DNA, of our biology, right? What's happening inside of us internally on a physiological level. That is what our emotions are, right? When we say we feel depressed, there's a neurobiological root to depression, and even within that, it can be modulated by things that we do, we have control over, like what we put in our bodies, and how we live our life, how we think, which is a really big one, how we perceive our environment plays a role in how we feel, right? Like you can literally, I don't think these people underestimate the power. It needs to be like more talk about this, which it really is if you're in the field of mental health or healthcare in general. Mindfulness and meditation, those are really big buzzwords, right? They're really big. But I would say it's kind of like within the field though, like kind of got to be like a professional to really, really know about this or tap into it, because a lot of people don't, but if you're conscious, there are a lot of people on that wave of meditation, right? And they understand like the power of the mind, just like what you have control over, your thoughts. You can control your thoughts, right? Being able to bring yourself, your body, your mind, body, and spirit to a place of equilibrium through meditation. It's a practice though, right? That can be perfected like over time, but you have to work on it, being able to quiet like your energy within. So it's your thoughts that you have control over, your exercise, your lifestyle. It really is a lifestyle. Depression is a lifestyle, because you can look at people's lifestyle and it makes sense. Okay, oh, I see why you're depressed, right? And making changes within their lifestyle, it can help mitigate those symptoms of depression. The loneliness, the isolation, the negative self-talk that, they engage in, right? The feeling of hopelessness. Because what is hopelessness? You just lack motivation. You don't see, like, there's any light at the end of the tunnel. You're just like, what's the point of living? And hopelessness is the biggest predictor of suicide, right? They're sisters or brothers or cousins. They're closely linked together. hopelessness, and suicide. So when you hear a person start talking in that way, like, what's the point of living? I'll be better off dead, even though that's like a passive form of like suicidal ideation, it's still to be taken seriously because, they're giving up. You don't have a reason to live, right? It's like reaching an existential crisis where you're like, what's the fucking purpose of life? Now, that can go either two ways. You can ask yourself, which I think all come to that point, and asking ourselves, why am I here? What is the purpose of life? That can go in a good direction through that exploration. You discover the meaning of life, but then you can ask it in a very pessimistic way where you don't see the answers to that question that you ask yourself. It's like, okay, I don't see the meaning of life, right? And to that end, I'm going to end it. Because it takes so much work to just get up, to breathe, right? That's so much work. When you don't have meaning, right, in your life, you know how exhausting it is to get up, and you can see people who are like severely depressed, like visibly it shows, obviously like in their poor hygiene and not brushing their teeth and their hair, the disheveled look, their face, their clothes, they're just downtrodden, right? But it makes sense though. It really does make sense. I totally get depression. I've been there. And it can be an ongoing struggle for many people. Andrew Seaman says, what does it mean when your girlfriend asks you to be her bitch? I just think you want me to talk about, a lot of like beta men, especially white men, are drawn to my YouTube videos, Facebook live videos, because I talk about like cuckolding. They like that. White men love that shit, yo. And they're submissive, and they just like that. What does it mean? I don't think that's his question. What does it mean? I just think he just wants to hear me talk about my perspective on a woman taking more of a dominant role and a man taking more of a submissive role in a relationship, right? And it's funny because I identify myself as submissive. So there are different variations of submissives, right? You can't think that one size fits all. We're all the same. And this happens. I come across men who make that mistake in assuming that, because they somehow think because I identify as a submissive, I want to be called a bitch. I do not. I want to be respected, and I said I was going to make a video on submissive versus queen, because I can identify myself as both, right? Like queen in the sense of being a woman who has high value, is very self-respecting and respectable, who holds a degree of power, right, in herself, within herself and in her environment, but also like the flip side, just being a woman who wants to submit, who has that quality innate within me. But yeah, I don't identify with wanting to be called a bitch. But there are a lot of men who want to be treated as such. They want to be used by women. I get a lot of men who make that proposal to me and ask me, oh, can I be your bitch? Can I be your little submissive fuck boy? And can I be your slave? They want to submit to me, not really in a sexual way, right? They want me to take advantage of them financially. They want me to like tell them what to do. And this is my thing, being that, of course, I studied psychology. That's my thing, right? I challenge people, encourage people to really ask themselves, what is the motivation for why? And just because I'm asking you to explore that, the why, doesn't mean that I'm judging. Don't get it mistaken, because this is always a no judgment zone, judgment free here. But it's just to get you to think. It's important for I think the success of that kind of relationship, and also for your own safety. A lot of people get themselves sucked up into the dark road, right, of BDSM and submission, that they don't even know why they're there. They're just there, right? Like, why do I have this fetish? You know, they don't even know. And so they become they want to be a doormat, right? They like the way they feel, I guess, when they're treated as a doormat, but they don't really want to be a doormat, right? Because I think deep down inside of us, right, deep down inside, like, we know our worth. We know who we are. You're not to be fucking treated like a doormat, but because of certain experiences that have primed you, most likely during childhood, that's what you resonate with, right? And that's how you interpret and conceptualize what love feels like. So that's why I challenge a lot of men, especially, who are attracted to my videos on cuckolding and dominance and submission, like, to really delve deep, because you will become someone's doormat and you're not going to like it. A lot of men complain on the tail side of it. It's like, oh, you know, she took me for everything I had and she just used me, and, you know, I didn't feel like loved by her. Even though I, like, identify myself as a bitch, you know, as a sus and a wuss, I identify with that, right? I crave to be dominated. But meanwhile, on the flip side, like, I didn't like that, you know, she abandoned me. I didn't like that she just threw me out, discarded me, and treated me like trash. But meanwhile, I did like it, though. I liked it, but I didn't like, it's like, so they put themselves at risk to just really, you know, be used and tossed to the side. And then they're like, damn, what did I do wrong? Like, I thought that's what she wanted. I thought, you got to really know what you're getting into. And I've talked about this before, right? I gave an example of a black man, actually. I forget the title of it, but he was a former cuckold. I think he kind of stepped away because he had so many bad experiences of women really using and abusing him. He hated it. It's like he liked it. Part of him, obviously, a big, deeper part of him liked it. But then a small part, and that's really all what it takes. It's just a small part. It's a little whisper of a voice within you says, you know what? I deserve to be treated better than this. And so having that awareness, you have this internal conflict now within yourself. And you're like confused. We can talk more about that. Fushan asks, why psychology and not psychiatrists? I guess she's talking about, like, my choice in profession. So psychiatrists, now historically, the field of psychology kind of evolved out of psychiatry. You think about it. You think about, like, the grandfathers of psychology, they were psychiatrists, right? Freud was a psychiatrist, trained in medicine. So that's the thing, though. And even to this day, like, psychiatrists do have training in psychology, but their predominant training is in psychiatry. It's in medicine. They're medical doctors. Psychologists, we're not medical doctors, though we are doctors because we have, you know, degrees, doctoral degrees, whether PhD or PsyD. We're doctors in that sense, but we're not medical doctors, though there's much overlap. So we also study, like, biology. We study neuropsychology. You know, there are many different branches within psychology that we study, and it does overlap often with medicine and what medical doctors study, but their focus is more in depth, right? They learn much more than we learn about the body itself, though we have much training with that. And so our study is with the mind and behavior, and they have very limited training when it comes to that. I didn't necessarily want to become a psychiatrist, and when you look at what a psychiatrist actually does, they just prescribe medication. Psychiatrists really don't do psychotherapy. I mean, they can do psychotherapy, they can do psychological evaluations and diagnose, but typically they really don't do that. They prescribe medication. But we do work like closely together. So like even at the hospital where I work at, you know, there's a team of professionals, including psychologists, myself, and psychiatrists, and medical doctor, and social worker, nurses. So we all work together. There's a lot of overlap. But psychiatrists do make more. Give it to them. They do make more than psychologists. What does it mean when someone is psychologically, he says, unbalanced, but I think he means imbalanced, right? There's like a imbalance in them internally, right? I think, honestly, it can be a good thing, right? A person is aware that there's an imbalance within them, right? They are aware that they are psychologically disturbed or under distress. That's a good thing, because that's like a sign, you know, a signal telling you something is wrong, right? Imagine if we did not know that we are in balance psychologically. Then that can be pretty bad. That can be really bad, right? So that is our way of being able to ascertain, to know, to test, to assess, right? Psychologists, we do testing. The difference in the testing that psychologists do versus medical doctors, you know, the testing within medicine is, you know, I wouldn't say realistic, but they have tools, right? And it's usually like through blood tests, you know, through scans, where they can actually see physically what's like happening, what's wrong with a person, right? Being able to draw blood, being able to see it, versus with psychology, the way we see it is like visibly, right? And you know, we interpret the behavior in which we see. And so it's good that there, you know, people we experience, and everyone experiences like psychological distress and this imbalance, and it manifests itself in different ways. That's the behavior that we're observing, right? And it has meaning to it. And so when a person, you know, is in balance, that's just what it is. There's an imbalance within them. I look at it in terms of like a spiritual, you know, imbalance, because it's mind, body, and spirit. But it's something obviously that they are experiencing that is letting us know that something is, you know, something is off, something is wrong, right? There's a disruption to their state of equilibrium. And then it then goes to figure out, okay, what's causing that? So that's a very broad-based question, but if you have a follow-up question to that, then that would be helpful. Fushan says, what is your favorite scent? Y'all, I have so many. I have so many, especially like the incense, y'all. I think I showed you guys my incense. I'll show you guys real quick before I end this video. But I love burning incense. I love it, I love it, I love it, y'all. And so I have these Lumbini. It smells so good. And there's this place called Medina, where they actually sell, like these are the manufacturer of these incense. You can actually go and get it from the real source, as opposed to getting it from like a secondary vendor who obviously is going to add tax to it. So you buy these on the street here across New York City, they go for $5. But if you go to the manufacturer here, oh, I got it upside down. You go to the manufacturer here, I know it's reversed, but it's Medina. These are only like $2, right? That's a whole hustle. Now, I'm not in the business to try to flip these or sell these, but I do go and buy them for myself, personal use. I got so many different flavors. Frank and Myrrh. I got black coconut. I got Ismiyaki, kind of model after these like popular colognes and fragrances. I got Lick Me All Over. Dolce and Gabbana. But it smells really good though. So those are the ones I have. I do love burning sage. So I think it kind of just goes back to like my heritage, you know. My mom's father is Native American, like he's Indian. So, you know, you look at like certain cultures, it's just common within their culture. It's a common practice, like burning wood, burning the Palo Santo, burning incense. It's just what they did, and it is a form of grounding too. You know, to burn fragrances, it helps you to ground. Anything that kind of activates, you know, or uses your senses, you know, smell, sight, touch, taste. It is a way you can ground, right? It's actually a therapeutic intervention that is very effective for people who disassociate themselves like from reality. And you know, that happens. I think we all experience disassociation. It's just a matter of to what degree. But it's like a natural, automatic response to trauma, especially. And so it helps me to ground, to be present in the moment. You know, I even have like fragrances at my desk, right? Like those, what do you call it? The renew it, whatever how you pronounce it. What is it called? I forget the brand, but you know those things that you have. You can like kind of poke open the top. It separates from the bottom and emits like wonderful, powerful fragrance. So I have that sitting at my desk at work, and people are like, "Oh, it smells so good in here." Listen, y'all, it's a new girl in town here. Yeah, but it helps me though. She also asks, is cuckold a threesome? I think, yeah, it can be. I think, yeah, like men who get off on men bringing in a bull to pleasure their wife or their female partner, though they gain pleasure from seeing the bull have sex with their woman, their female partner, or, you know, their wife, they may also follow up with that. You know, I've heard men say they clean up the mess. Ew. Yeah, just the thought, like the visualization of that, I'm like, too much info, okay? Too much info. But to each his own, right? So it can be a threesome, or it can just, you know, be mere observation of the bull and the cocodrus having fun. So Adam Moyer says, it's such a shame the urge for homosexuality and lesbianism is growing daily. We kind of talked about that yesterday. Yeah. And, you know, it can be controversial even talking about this, right? You know, it's like LGBTQIA, that shit continues to grow, right? The acronym is like they have become a protected entity in a sense, right? This identity that they have, and all there within has become like this kind of protected thing. So even if you kind of like speak about your own heterosexual beliefs, which obviously will coincide with homosexuality because they're not the same, right? They're opposing lifestyles, perspectives, and sexualities. Just because you are comfortable and secure within your sexuality as a heterosexual, just you taking pride in that and saying that you're not gay or you're opposed to that, like, you know, you get shamed for that. I don't like that, you know. They want to point fingers at you like you're doing something wrong when you're just fucking being goddamn a human being. You're being whatever, right? Like, you want to be gay, go be gay. I have nothing against gay people. What I have against this whole LGBTQIA movement is how they impose it. Like, they want to force it down people's throat. And even with children, they look at like, oh, we're just supporting, you know, their ability to choose or to express their identity. That's the one way to look at it, because I don't necessarily look at homosexuality as completely a choice. It can be, I think. It can be a result of adverse experiences too that people have, and it also can be biological in nature too. I firmly believe in biological influences that impact one's sexuality. So yeah, person I do think can be born homosexual or lesbian. I do believe that, as it pertains to their expression and their hormones. But I do also believe that there's an agenda too, right? It's a lot of parallel processes happening at the same time. So Adam Oye says, what can be done about the high divorce rate? Yo, nothing. People have a right to choose. People have a right to believe what they want. They are influenced by the media, by society, by people in their immediate surroundings. Like, it's a whole culture, this kind of like throwaway culture that people have subscribed to. So who are we to try to control or do anything about it? What can be done about it is, I think, reinforcing like positive images of relationships and people in love and marriages, like promoting it, right? You have your own platforms. I make a conscious effort to share like positive messages and photos and images and memes on my own page, right? Instead of promoting negativity, promote positivity, right? So that's my way of combating the high divorce rate. And through education, teaching people how to problem solve. A lot of relationships terminate and marriages and divorces because people don't know how to resolve problems. They just don't. They forget why they got married in the first place. And I get it. It can be very stressful. Not to undermine the complexity of relationships, y'all. We're talking about two people coming together, two different people, and you look at a person, each individual brings with them their own baggage. Everybody has baggage, and years of it, right? Generational layers, I shall say, aka trauma that they bring. All that intermixing, and that's just two individuals, not to mention like the interplay with the in-laws. So many factors. It can be stressful. Being single is kind of like stress-free, right? That's how I look at it. Stress-free, less stress. I would say nothing is completely stress-free, but less stress than what you would have to endure in a relationship. Because there are compromises that have to take place when you're in a relationship. And you may not want to compromise. You may be very self-centered. I ain't fucking... I'm not compromising. I'm not doing that shit. Alright. Fushan says, there are so many different perspectives when dealing with sexuality that I decided to be celibate. Yeah, because the different perspectives or attitudes, right, that people hold, which are oftentimes just negative, it's best to just remove yourself from that whole dating pool altogether, right? Because you don't want to deal with that. Like, people are, you think about it, when you hold a certain belief system, right, values, and then there's like other people out there that exist that hold all these different, like she says, different perspectives, alternative attitudes, and you know it's going to coincide with what you believe in, right? How you do things. It's just, you really want to go through that? You can't change a person's perspective. I mean, you can. They can change their own perspective. You can help influence it, right? But it's just like, it's just easy just to create your own world and live in it, right? So. Alright, I think this is the last question or comment. Adamoya, you just came in the right time. It says, I think celibacy is far greater and better than being homo. Yeah, we all entitled to our own opinions. But yeah, homosexuality, I think, like I was saying earlier, is not as simple. We try to like simplify things, and some things just aren't. It's not that simple, right? As it kind of being reduced to a choice that people have. Like people choose to be gay, you choose who you're attracted to, whether it's male or female, right? You choose who you have sex with. It can be a choice in that way, but it's like what's influencing that choice, that desire that you have, right? That attraction. What influences that attraction that a man has for another man, right? Be, the media. Many different factors can influence. It can be the media. It can be peers, that they are around, people that they're around. Media plays a major role, though. But even outside the media, it could just be their own biology. Let's talk about that. I'm right-handed. So when you're looking at a video, especially, a video that has been recorded live, on Facebook. I'm not sure if it's the same one on Instagram or YouTube, but I know for sure on Facebook, because this is where I record my live videos. Everything is flipped, right? So I'm holding up my right hand. This is my right hand. This is my left hand, right? But it may show different the way you see it. But some things I'm ambidextrous in, though. Like basic things. But in terms of writing, I write with my right hand. But yeah, like it's very homosexuality, it's very complex, and I think yes, biology definitely has a role in influencing all behavior, especially when it comes to our sexuality, our sexual attraction to people, and environment plays a role because environment can influence our biology, right? It's epigenetics. It can influence our hormones, and there have been studies, there has been a whole talk about what we eat, what is in the food, right? And how that influences our hormones. Think about things on a molecular cellular level, right? On a biological level. And it begins to make sense. Like, certain foods can cause overproduction on certain hormones that make men grow breasts, right? Produce more estrogen. Now, we all have estrogen and testosterone, but to produce more than what's needed for a specific sex, right, whether male or female, it's going to affect your sexual expression. It's going to affect your biology. So that's a component. We don't really talk about that. It just, a lot of people who, let's say, are heterosexual sometimes do shame individuals who are attracted to the same sex without even thinking deeply about what's influencing that attraction. So I think that's interesting. But having said that, I'm going to end this video. Like I said, it was fun. I like to be able to address your questions. I did want to come back and revisit those comments that were left on the previous video. The very first part in this segment on I'm available to chat. So I don't know when I'm going to come back again to do another video in this series. But just make sure that you turn your post notifications on so that you'll know when I go live. It is a free-for-all, like I said. If you have a question, comment, whatever, feel free to engage. Some of y'all are like, I'm not on Facebook. Well, that's you. Anyway, I'll catch you guys later. I'm about to grab me some food and enjoy this Saturday. It did rain. I'm looking in the window trying to see, did it stop raining? I think it did stop. So I may take a walk in the park, grab me some food. But I'll catch you guys later. Peace.